Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qi. Coming up in this edition, Israel and Iran have warned each other of further actions following the latest Iranian missile attacks on the Jewish state. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has postponed an mpox vaccination campaign as local health authorities say they are not ready. And Chinese authorities have reported tens of millions of passenger trips on the third day of the National Day Golden Week holiday. We begin in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to respond to this week's missile attacks from Iran. And Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has warned of a strong response from Tehran to any further Israeli actions against it. Pezeshkian also sought to rally other nations to its side during his visit to Qatar. Iranian media says the missile attacks destroyed several F-35 fighter jets in Israel. Meanwhile, the Israeli military claims its air force remains functional and the attacks were ineffective. Trent Murray has more from Tel Aviv.
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been consulting with senior ministers in his government as well as intelligence and military chiefs, charting how they will respond to this Iranian ballistic missile attack. The IDF has said 181 of those missiles was fired towards the state of Israel. The air defense system was largely able to intercept most of them with the assistance of 2 US warships, but an admission that some of those missiles did manage to slip through and strike Air Force bases. They insist that no aircraft were damaged or military facilities, only some office buildings and maintenance facilities suffered damage. Now, the focus right now really does seem to be shifting to how Israel will respond. We understand a number of options are on the table, according to Israeli media, including targeting essential infrastructure in Iran, like oil and gas rigs. We do understand also stateside conversations are underway based on US reporting around how the US would support any sort of retaliation from Israel and crucially whether it would come to its defense should Tehran to decide to respond in kind. Certainly the message from Iran to Israel, it would appear publicly, is that any sort of reaction from Israel to what happened here will garner yet an even stronger response.
That was Trent Murray on tensions in the Middle East. Arab governments have condemned Israel's attacks in Lebanon and called for an end to hostilities to avoid the conflict from spiraling out of control. On the streets of Beirut, the displaced are hoping for an early stop to the fighting. Abdel Al-Marouki reports.
The Middle East is in the midst of one of its worst regional conflicts. Missiles from Iran heading to Israel have forced the closure of airspaces of all countries between the two nations, and there has been an increased risk of a wider and more devastating regional war breaking out in recent days.
Mostly the children were scared, even from the sound of the smallest bombs. So missiles terrified children, so we had to carry our children and get out of the bombed place, as well as families who were harmed without any reason. Nobody's families were left.
We were confident they would respond and happy they did, even if it was a late response. We are not afraid of an expanded war in Lebanon as long as we have the right to fight. We own this land. They are attacking us. Let them do whatever they want. We have people who can respond. Whoever dies will go to God, and whoever remains will keep fighting.
In Lebanon, Israel bombed nearly 18 villages adjacent to its border in the south. It instructed people living in 24 villages to leave their homes in what is seen as a sign that a bigger military operation could be carried out there. Analysts expect further Israeli attacks deeper into Lebanon.
Infiltrating Lebanon's border is an expected approach based on a classical military mindset. Battles can never be decisive without ground operations, but the latest attacks the resistance made against Israel shows that they are ready to do more. The resistance groups are ready, and by that I also mean those in Yemen and Iraq.
In the Middle East, Arab countries have condemned Israel's ongoing attacks. Egypt says the region is at a dangerous crossroads due to what it says are Israel's unilateral moves that Cairo warns will lead the region to a more dangerous path. The Arab League held an emergency meeting on Wednesday to discuss these latest developments. There is a regional outcry for the international community to take any immediate step to end the wars in Gaza and Lebanon before the Middle East sinks in an unstoppable, fully fledged wide war.
That was Abdel Amrouki in Lebanon. In Africa, authorities in the Democratic Republic of the Congo have postponed an mpox vaccination campaign due to the unpreparedness of the health systems in provinces targeted for the rollout. Chris Okumringa has more.
The vaccination against mpox in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been put on hold. Health officials say they encountered challenges that forced them to push the exercise forward. The DRC has recorded the highest number of mpox cases in Africa. Statistics show that more than 21,000 people have contracted the viral disease and 700 others have died this year. The World Health Organization and other humanitarian organizations are helping the country to stop the spread of the disease.
We have 6 pillars that we are working on to ensure that the response is effective. We are doing our best to control the epidemic and stop it from spreading.
Last month, the DRC received 265,000 doses of mpox vaccines from the European Union and the United States. But health workers have been struggling to convince people to roll up their sleeves and get the jabs. They are targeting health workers, park rangers, and commercial sex workers in this vaccination campaign. Mpox is a contagious disease caused by the monkeypox virus. Its symptoms include headache, fever, and a skin rash. The vaccines are supposed to be stored in cold freezers at -20 degrees Celsius. But many provinces in the DRC have very unreliable electricity. Congolese health officials and their international partners are now stepping up measures to deploy the vaccines. That involves putting cold storage facilities in some of the remoter areas ahead of the vaccination rollout scheduled for this weekend.
That was Chris Okumringa in the DRC. In Asia, authorities expect 60 million car trips on highways in China on the third day of the National Day holiday. They also anticipate more than 2 million individual trips by air and over 16,000 flights on Thursday. The railway network is expecting 17.3 million trips across the country. The mainland box office has exceeded 1 billion yuan so far this National Day holiday. That's more than $142 million, including pre-sales. The Volunteers, the battle of life and death that honors fallen soldiers of the Chinese People's Volunteers in the early 1950s, leads the box office chart. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, the Special Administrative Region is celebrating the national holiday with shopping perks and special events. The city is expecting 20% more visitors from the mainland this year compared to a year ago. Anne Chen reports.
Celebrations in Hong Kong are in full swing for the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. A flag-raising ceremony and National Day reception is held in the morning of October 1st. There are also many offers and freebies for the day. For public transport, all tram rides and some ferry routes are free, while passengers taking the Underground Rail get a 25% discount. Public leisure facilities like swimming pools and basketball courts are also free, and the same goes for government-run museums. As for consumption, all cinemas are offering half-price tickets, while there's a 25% shopping discount for at least 10,000 public markets and hawker stalls. Around 3,000 restaurants and merchants also have deals on selected catering items. With or without discounts, however, Canton Road is always a popular option for visitors from the Chinese mainland.
There are many big brands with many different styles and options. I feel great when I'm shopping.
We wish our motherland a happy birthday. It's a bit hot here in Hong Kong, but overall, whether it's the working staff or the local people, they're all very warm and friendly to us.
Yes, and everyone's Mandarin has improved a lot.
The Travel Industry Council estimates that there will be around 1.15 million to 1.2 million visitors from the mainland during this 7-day national holiday. The council says that's a 20% growth compared to last year and that it's very optimistic.
One of the rather appealing offer is that Hong Kong Tourism Board, they have a lot of promotions and then publicity in mainland talking about this National Day, what's happening in Hong Kong. So I think one of the offer is I like it very much, attractive to mainland tourists. That is, they work with Kodak, which is an app that they can call for the local transportation service, and then with a 20% discount. So I think this is exactly the mode of travel of our mainland visitors, and I think that helps a lot.
And of course, a big attraction for this holiday is fireworks over the Victoria Harbour, with a total of 31,888 firing shells discharged into the air. With 8 scenes lasting about 23 minutes long, the theme for this year is called Splendid Fireworks Shining Over a Prosperous China. Hong Kong has organized over 400 activities across different sectors of the community before and after National Day to celebrate this joyous occasion.
That was Anne Chen on the National Day holiday celebrations in Hong Kong. Typhoon Krathon has landed in southern Taiwan. It has killed at least 2 people and knocked out a power and water supply for tens of thousands of households. Schools, businesses and some highways are closed and flights have stopped. Andy Lee reports from Taipei.
Normally during typhoon season, typhoons attacking Taiwan would be making landfall in the eastern part in Hualien or in Taitung. However, this one is quite special. It's making landfall in the southwestern part of Taiwan, which is more densely populated. And so people here in Taiwan are taking all the precaution they can. Now, the island's authorities have already shut down the island 2 consecutive days, shutting down offices, businesses, schools, and even financial markets. Now, hundreds of flights in and out of this island of Taiwan has been affected. Local authorities here in Taiwan are also warning people to stay away from the seaside, the beach, and from the mountainous areas in case of storm surges in the beach, coastal areas, or mudslides in the mountainous areas. And yes, 2 people have sustained fatality right now here in Taiwan. One in Hualien, an old man was pruning tree. He fell off the tree due to the typhoon wind and rain. And then another one was a driver in Taitung who crashed into falling rocks. So 2 fatalities, and 10,000 people were evacuated and more than 100 are injured.
On the Chinese mainland, Fujian province has suspended ferry services, and the east coast is bracing for strong winds. Turning to Europe, Germany's chancellor says negotiations with China over electric vehicle subsidies must continue. Olaf Scholz says it would be wrong to shut foreign competitions out of the European market. His remarks came ahead of a vote by EU member countries later this week on whether to impose new tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. Peter Oliver has more from Berlin.
Well, he's been saying that talks need to continue. Negotiations with China, between China and the European Union, need to continue over these tariffs that do look like they are incoming. The tariffs themselves could run as high as an additional 38% on top of the costs of Chinese-made electric vehicles being sold in the European market. The EU says they need them because Chinese manufacturers benefit too greatly from subsidies in China, and that makes their prices uncompetitive compared to European-made models. Now, what we've heard from the Chinese side and from manufacturers here in Germany, like Mercedes, saying this is nothing that European manufacturers and the manufacturers in the US haven't done previously. What we heard from Olaf Scholz adding on to that, speaking at the Berlin Global Dialogue, was that we really need to avoid a trade war. Now, before going into that session in the BGD, he had a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. That's important because obviously France and Germany, huge European partners, EU, 2 of the pillars of the European Union, but also because Emmanuel Macron is the main supporter of these tariffs against Chinese manufacturers. Olaf Scholz, on the other side, is essentially the leader of the other bloc against them. We've even heard that Germany may well abstain at this vote that's coming up on Friday.
That was Peter Oliver reporting from Berlin. Finally, in North America, U.S. vice presidential candidates have faced off in their only debate with only a month remaining until the election. Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz avoided personal attacks in what most people see as a polite encounter in New York City. Corinna Mitchell has highlights.
In a largely cordial but at times passionate vice presidential debate, Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance went after the presidential candidates instead of each other.
Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that.
I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies.
But there were some tense moments when it came to hot-button issues, like the escalating conflict in the Middle East.
So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership.
It is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are.
Immigration was one topic where the two showcased sharp differences. Vance saying Harris's border policies have failed, and Trump policies, including building a wall and mass deportations, should be re-implemented. Walz firing back, saying remarks that Vance made about Haitian immigrants in Ohio vilified them. On abortion, both stuck to party lines, while Vance acknowledged the issue is complicated, and Republicans must do a better job at earning back the trust of Americans on the issue.
Let voters make these decisions. Let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place.
Both candidates misstated facts during the debate, like Walz's false claim that Republicans want to create a, quote, registry of pregnancies. Moderators pressed Vance to explain why he said Trump was unfit for office and Trump's economic policies were failures. With no other debate scheduled and just over 1 month left before the November election, it's unclear what effect, if any, the debate will have on what the polls show is an incredibly tight race.
That was Karen Mitchell on the vice presidential debate in the U.S. Now, recapping the headlines, Israel and Iran have warned each other of further actions following the latest Iranian missile attacks on a tourist state. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has postponed an mpox vaccination campaign as local health authorities say they are not ready. And Chinese authorities have reported tens of millions of passenger trips on the third day of the National Day Golden Week holiday. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Xi Zhi. Thank you for listening.